This is Half of a Yellow Sun by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Now, this is probably the first book that I'm giving a trigger warning to because it does cover a couple of heavy topics. Also, for the Nigerians who will be watching this, please forgive me if I do mispronounce a lot of the names, but I'll try my best not to. Alright, this story is told through the lenses of 5 different characters who are all interconnected in Nigeria right before and during the Biafran War. We are introduced to Ugwu, a boy from the village who is now working for a man called Odenigbo. Ugwu didn't really go to school and is pretty illiterate and unexposed at the beginning of the story. Being taken from the village and now living in Suka with a man of means really fascinates him. Odenigbo takes a liking to Ugwu and decides he will enroll him in school, even though he will be the oldest one in the class. Odenigbo works at the university and really values education. He oftentimes, in the evenings, entertains guests at his house, where they drink and smoke and talk about politics, philosophy, and culture. He's your average academic socialist type. Ugwu is fascinated by the life he lives and how eloquent him and his friends are. Odenigbo begins to live with a lady called Olanna. Now, Olanna has just come back from school in London. She is from a pretty well-off family. Her father is a wealthy businessman, and they want her to marry also into power and wealth. She, however, is in love with the revolutionary Odenigbo. Olanna has an identical twin sister called Kainene. She is also pretty well educated, but bolder and more pragmatic. She often refers to Olanna as the pretty one. Her and Olanna were pretty close growing up, but drifted apart as they grew older, just due to personality. Kainene at this time starts seeing a British guy called Richard. Richard is an odd fellow compared to the other Brits, in that he can speak Igbo and is really fascinated with the culture. He is often questioning his own identity and prejudices. When Odenigbo informs Ugwu that a lady is coming to live with them, Ugwu is not very happy about it. He looks up to Odenigbo and likes life as it is and feels a woman will come and ruin everything. However, Ugwu immediately grows very fond of Olanna and they have a pretty good bond. He often feels like they are a family, the 3 of them. On one occasion, Odenigbo's mother comes to visit. She openly hurls insults at Olanna, calling her a witch because she did not suckle on her mother's breast, and therefore does not want anything to do with her. She is so determined to make sure that Odenigbo does not end up with Olanna that she comes with a village girl called Amala, gets Odenigbo drunk, and then one thing leads to another. At the time, Olanna is away, and only Ugwu sees what has happened. When Olanna returns, she feels something strange and confronts Odenigbo. He confesses, and you know how it goes. He pleads, and she gets mad, moves out for some time, but will eventually come back. However, Olanna is also up to no good herself. On one of the nights she goes to look for some wine and meets a British guy, who she's no stranger to, as he's our boy Richard, who is dating Kainene, her twin sister. She invites him over for a drink, and you know how that goes. So yes, Odenigbo cheats, and she does it in return. To make the story even more complicated, Odenigbo finds out that Amala is pregnant. The reason why this is such awful news to Olanna is because they too have been trying to get a child, but Olanna has not gotten pregnant yet. Richard, back with Kainene, is trying to play cool, like he didn't do the slimiest thing. One day, as Kainene is around, Harrison, Richard's worker, blurts out how Odenigbo had come and shouted at Richard. Richard now has to confess to Kainene what happened. Olanna gets on a call with Kainene, and she is told off pretty bad. Their relationship was not really the best, and now you add a knife in the back. They are basically on no talking terms. When Amala's baby is born, she refuses to hold it. Turns out she just wanted a boy, and does not want to keep the baby girl. Olanna decides that she wants to take the baby and raise it, which is pretty surprising. The child is not given a name and is just called Baby. Ugwu will help raise her. Olanna has an aunt and uncle in Kano that she visits often. She even goes to ask advice from her aunt every now and then. There's tension in the country at this time, and she goes to visit them. Through an old boyfriend who is Hausa, she is able to go around the town and goes to her aunt's place. She finds her relatives have been slaughtered. You see, the Igbos, which Olanna, Odenigbo, and most of the people she's around, has staged a coup, and there was another coup, so they are now being hunted. They do not consider themselves Nigerians and want to have their own nation called Biafra. This is the beginning of the war. On her way back to Nsukka on a train, she sees unimaginable things, even a lady carrying her daughter's head in a box. It is becoming a real bloodbath. They have to now evacuate and run away as Nigerian soldiers are coming. Richard, being white, is not being hunted by anyone, but feels a connection to Biafra. He's also a writer, so he writes articles praising Biafra. Odenigbo passes by his hometown and tries to get his mother to come with them, but she refuses. She wants to remain home. Odenigbo, Olanna, Baby, and Ugwu move to another village. The conditions here are not very good. They have basically become refugees and now rely on relief food. They even have to build a bunker because of the constant bombs being dropped. Baby falls sick a lot, and so do a lot of other kids. Kwashiorkor is a major issue and a lot of kids are dying. Basically all the awful things that usually happen during wars. Young men are being conscripted to go fight in the army, so Ugwu is basically told to always stay in the compound they are in to avoid being caught by the soldiers. Odenigbo gets word that his mother has been killed. This completely destroys him. He stops spending time at home and drinks cheap liquor daily. He even uses up the money he receives on alcohol. Once in a while, reports come about some of his old friends being killed in various parts of the country. One day, as Ugwu is walking a girl home, he is caught by soldiers and is conscripted. He is now a Biafran soldier. At first, life is tough for him, but he eventually gets used to it. He even enjoys the killing sometimes, and drinks and smokes with the other soldiers. On one night, as they are at a bar, the other soldiers begin to sexually assault a woman, who's basically like the bartender who was serving them. Ugwu is taunted by the other soldiers and being told he's not a man because he doesn't want to partake in what they're doing. He caves under the pressure and joins them in assaulting this woman. He feels disillusioned with everything. He doesn't care much about the war anymore. He also can't shake the guilt he feels over what he did. After a while, Olanna gets word that Ugwu has been killed. They were overpowered and a bunch of them slaughtered. She cries and wails. They hold a ceremony for Ugwu. Baby keeps asking about him, and she has to tell her that he'll be back soon. There's nothing but death and despair around them. They flee the village they are in and go live with Kainene and Richard, as that village is now falling. Olanna and Kainene sort of reconcile during the war. Kainene is helping out at a refugee camp. Father Damian, a priest who worked with Olanna in Nsukka, finds Ugwu in a hospital. Turns out Ugwu was injured, but did not die. His body was not found on the battlefield and was assumed dead. Richard picks him up. Now they are all back together. Ugwu learns of all the people who have died. Most of them are Odenigbo's friend. For example, there was one of the friends who used to come and recite poems at their old house in Nsukka called Okeoma. Ugwu really used to like his poems and used to be a friendly guy. At the camp, Kainene finds out one of the priests has been sleeping with the refugees before giving them food. Kainene is enraged and throws him out. Ugwu thinks of how Olanna and Kainene would react if they found out what he did when he was a soldier. Ugwu spends a lot of his time just thinking and writing. He even tries to write poems like Okeoma used to do. He's basically lost in writing and trying to document what he sees around him. Due to her role in the camp and the scarcity of resources, Kainene decides to cross over to the Nigerian side to trade for things. They part ways with Richard in the morning to each go and take care of things. When Richard returns, Kainene is not back. He waits and waits and she doesn't come back. She is probably stuck on the other side and can't come back due to Nigerian soldiers blocking the way. A day turns into a week. Kainene is nowhere to be seen. Olanna even goes to look for her in the morgues, but she is not there. At the national level, a deal is made and the war comes to an end. Odenigbo and Olanna decide to go to Nsukka, along with Ugwu and Baby, leaving Richard behind to search for Kainene. They are harassed along the way by Nigerian soldiers, especially since they are intellectuals and a lot of the prior planning happened in Nsukka. Ugwu goes to visit home. Since the war began, he had no way of getting news from home. He goes and finds his people are good. However, his mother passed away. She wasn't killed in the war, but died due to illness. He meets his sister, who before the war was looking forward to getting married, and she looks different than she used to. One of her eyes can't see well. She feels distant and really doesn't respond much to his questions. He is later told that she was assaulted by a group of men by the river, who also beat her till her eye could not see. Ugwu has a flashback of passing through somewhere and seeing other women at a river, so he's still dealing with what he did in his mind. Now, as for Kainene, she is still not found. Richard is still out there looking for her. Olanna keeps on thinking about her. We never know the fate of Kainene. That is Half of a Yellow Sun by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie.